Hello. There is a human fact-shaping nature breaching method that developed in semi-ancient times and has relativity to where and how nature demonstrates this to us. And the breaching method keeps those demonstrations of itself. It keeps roles with itself as the names of countries A through Z that could be only be operated by the locations, areas, and states names. If forced, checked, hurt, and persuaded, the names of locations, areas, and states, every single place the human species body has its body standing, to blame other things, others, or ourselves, for nature's demonstrations of itself and of what it caused. And then, so that was true. And then when people are blaming each other wrong, then they're blaming each other wrong correctly, but they're using those truths for lies exactly the way it needed, leaving itself out. This made roles more and more with uses of the syntax of the names of the people of the sciences and of the people who rely on that, with using the principles and people, the difference of it. As systems tactical terror from what could defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract anyone with short words proper by the identity the sciences share with convictions, let alone convictions with guilt, again, leaving out the breaching method. There are proofs that they had to leave cipher for us to decipher modern religions. Like, for example, the devil and Shaitan with Christianity and with um, Islam, and with Judaism too. I never read what book they read, but it's reportedly tied. And demonstrably is everyone has wrong about slavery because everyone's playing the game with it. How could we believe our black people as white survives? A breaching method reassigned names A through Z, and it sustained roles with it being systems tactical terror from natures, specifically to have more people to hide behind and through, where no one wanted to be a systems tactical terror from natures. The ancients couldn't fathom anyone could force, check, hurt, and persuade every body of the human species body to force other things, others, ourselves, blame for things, demonstration of itself. Even though it's a demonstration of a breaching method against every self. People have self-value roles, self-value through systems tactical ulterior, so you're not missing where and how. You're saying, oh, that's why I don't care about that. That's why, in other words, it's important, too, to pay attention to changing and faking our words when we speak on predicate acts. And predicate acts are being stuck in databases, pretend to fake phone transcripts, fake the conversations with police, fake conversations at courts. The state of Connecticut judicial branch offices and corrections offices, for example, they have rules that organize crimes that they're only capable of having rules with, as is true at countries A through Z. And the differences of guilt there, or people next to it, or exceptions, people that were just walking by or driving by, or conjunctions to that, like Route 3. In other words, it is manifest that way because of how we are value/value progression and as systems tactical terror from the one that uses how we are an individual different species body than other species bodies. But they are also species bodies of individual bodies. We are shown the difference of individual is a difference that is inseparable from itself, and that being a part of itself. It is generating all group differences, a distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. That comes with the visible but still discernible that we know as the parts of speech of modern languages. The names of the people who the sciences cannot afford to have. Anyone with the syntax work properly by the identity the sciences share since semi-ancient times. Because this breaching method, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, if you will, rather than one religion's notion of an evil entity. And through the nature of religions, they had to communicate things that they couldn't leave in the writing of religions, because it was a breaching method that already had possession of the campuses. It already had possession of all natures of industries, all natures of human systems, tactical ulterior from who could afford that, defended syntactically, even though it was forced, and simultaneously afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper by the human species body of individual bodies, all group differences generated by itself. It shows us the difference of some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. We could discern this because where we could discern its identity of value progression to an extent, it comes with its complete identity relationship to itself and the value of that equally increasing. And English was revealed to teach this before the sciences became criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought. So, for example, the people who teach English grammar or English arts, they cannot afford to have discerned. How and why? The sciences, the law values the identity of the law. It values a predicate, act, as a means to discern criminal insidiousness nature. But we're going to discern also hyper-criminal insidiousness nature. Like, for example, the northern colonies and the southern colonies were forced roles with predicate acts against each human difference, including like Native American or male or female. Never went away. It's just different. This breaching method has this game that they've been sustaining as styles. Oh, this is the 60s. That was black. Oh, because it was that. It was war. Those things don't define us. Only because of the breaching method they do. The ancients couldn't fathom anyone with force, check, hurt, persuade. The phenomenon of the countries that could only be operated by locations, areas, and states. People use that as systems other, because the ancients knew that nature demonstrates when we're using systems other than its own. That's one of the things we're discerning. Where and how we could discern how some things are only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. Like positive treatments too, like peace. There are criminal insidiousness natures of peace, therefore. Nature itself shows us the difference between peace and hyper-peace. Nature itself shows us the difference of positive that can be used as a negative, to screen a negative. Criminal insidiousness nature or positive of facts, treatment, truth, treatment. Nature shows us this. Every individual voice is prevented a quality of fact, treatment, nature. And like, for example, the relativity of sequence value and relativity. Every individual is prevented this because we have been systems tactical terror from natures. Group differences. And we are individuals. The species body is an individual. And when we're like, for example, with subjects, the invisible but still discernible is with the parts of speech about, but also about the / hyper invisible but still discernible. This identity of value progression. That is not our species body. It is not the other species bodies. But it is all things anyway. It's showing us. We didn't invent how there are totally different species bodies of individual bodies. There is an identity of value progression that is simultaneously greater than and more finite than all these different species bodies together at the same time too. Ugh. and Earth with its a special difference. Our own, their own, other species bodies. In other words, this is where this nature communicates to us, gives us answers. In other words, like about a special difference and how to speak about this. I saw a YouTube video, a title of it or something that says that, or a few seconds, I don't know where it is. They said there's a bacteria that's growing on the outside of spaceships. We don't want to mess with gases in outer space and change the environment. See, but everyone's perspective, the suburbs were designed before America's founders were born for torture, extortion, back to be nature, slavery method against every human difference, against every single person. They left means for us. They left it classified for themselves and for us to understand why and how they did not have free speech, and everyone had to pretend they had free speech to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed, and it was adapted to through their own, and or sensed by the breaching method, which is not A through Z, but is fluent through A through Z. Only capable of defending all notions and styles of, positive treatments or negative treatments, names treatments, blame treatments, not being able to afford convictions proper, where blame is, convictions with the mind, let alone convictions with blame involved. This breaching method is hiding behind other things, others ourselves. It got people to blame for things that it caused. And then for why the people had to counter that, they're blaming it properly. But no, everyone was missing its roles with this. And everyone was missing what that would and does do to the quality of fact human nature with the names of the people, the sciences, and that being us, the difference, the exceptions, like as the students, as a homeschool, whatever. We are in a semi-ancient trap. Things that appear to be debatable are not. And things that appear not to be debatable, they are debatable. Tactical ulterior are appreciations of the simultaneous. Like, for example, with subjects, we could appreciate subjects individually, grouped, and simultaneously to an extent. And with where and how we could discern this, we could discern that there is an extent greater that is too great for us to be able to do simultaneous subjects that appreciate them at the same time. And there are some subjects too finite for us to even appreciate. And per an identity of body progression that has active relativity to ourselves, the way we know, but then other ways hyper additionally, beyond us. And this is, in other words, the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions and nature, while being a landscape theater, not realizing, more and more nature would be demonstrating where it's an identity grounds, identity relationship to itself and its roles with exception nature as that distinct, hyper invisible, but still discernible. That comes with the parts of speech of language. So the subjects individually grouped and simultaneously, we can appreciate them, but we also can appreciate the hyper simultaneous. It's that same identity of value progression that has shown us since we were kids. We know we don't speak because they have other replaced though. Well, this is already the answer that we know. And where and how it got replaced originally and still, even though our founders had it declassified for themselves and for us, it's known, it's still replaced. The breaching method has self-body roles with the campuses of all ages and natures, and with all natures of industries, including the industry of education. They cannot afford to have discerned, honest syntax regarding what a predicate acts is about. And even if it could be just only interstates, there are criminal foreign influences involved here. There are people involved with criminally foreign influence uses of campuses associated with the Diddy trial, all sides of it, as people with the Connecticut corrections offices and judicial offices also involved with the World Trade Center attack, and with a bunch of different murders and body dumping spots of totally different, a serial killer, totally different reported killer, and then just other shootings and things like that with ties. Also recorded on Facebook various ways. Before I went on Facebook, I had been asking since before the World Trade Center attack. I didn't know all their names. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his co-defendant capacities, he has collusion/S with his co-defendants and their family members and their lawyer and courts that were planting things before the World Trade Center attack on off campuses too, as collusion/S, where they're building upon predicate acts with facts at the campuses and or next to it, and the difference of that too. All of them, they have connections made for them. This is recorded. They're leaking this, whether it's via police, put me in fake conversations with themselves and others. They have foreign and domestic militaries involved. And with the World Trade Center attack. See, they want to have, oh, that's debatable. Oh, go to court. The courts have, the state judicial branch corrections, so already recorded themselves as collusion/S, but other people are doing this. Attaching, changing, and faking what courts actually prove. Putting people in fake conversations with the courts and with the police forms and the news at the same time to prevent the right outcome and to cover up and to keep consolidated criminally foreign influence careers, including interbranch. Certain type of victim/hyper-victim. Forgiveness is important. But there are collusion/S with all ages and natures of campuses. And with the branches of government individually grouped together, they have predicate acts methods recorded. A breaching method uses that to show them and their styles that were propagated on and off campuses. Effectively, our country's A through Z, though, for hyper foreign, it shows them how to read the law, leaving out black people's whites of eyes, for example, replacing what nature communicates and what our founders communicated with this. So the suburbs are designed, the identity, the grounds, identity, and like water, the entire ocean is polluted, reportedly, and demonstrably, in other ways. We have been, these are not our means. The colonists wanted to build better, safer, and identity of grounds. People would see that this preaching method has entertained. How many people use that phrase? Hunter-gatherer. They cultivate it. They realize this is good. Cultivate this. This thing is bad. Get rid of it. See, but the breaching method, that brought evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere, and communications about positive and negative. By nature itself. Nature shows us when we are systems tactical ulterior from its own. There's a difference between some things are not natural, but as criminal insidious in its nature. Nature shows us this. It shows us the difference between criminal insidious and its nature thing of itself. Where it's how it's showing us a special difference. So what we need to do, the nuclear bomb-holding countries need to make a deal with the rest of the countries as the human species body of individual bodies, a deal to hook it up with what it has wanted since some ancient times, since before America's founders were born. This only appears to be debatable because you have read American history lessons, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought. I'll show you how they keep the names of the people, the sciences individually grouped and together, a certain type of victim/hyper-victim, victim predator/hyper-predator. Exactly the way the branching as timed collusion/S, however, that no one wanted. except it's going to keep that everyone showing that and using that for their motivation. In other words, their syntax, their nature just dishonestly for the breaching method. The breaching method has rules with why and with how you guys have logic and natures of logic that have absent how we have black peoples and white survive from your logic regarding the most critical parts of history, like slavery, like what caused the Civil War, James Madison's plan, and founders behind him, how and why they had to counter-extort the other presidents and the other citizens and the rest of the Native Americans too. We're supposed to understand this clearer than day. But see, this preaching method showed them how to blame other things other than themselves for things that are founders and that nature itself. It was just showing up. Evolution's fruits, gifts means out of nowhere agreements come. Excuse me, I have to step away.